I'd like to call the District 228 regular board meeting to order. Can I get roll call, please?
Mrs. Gleason? Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mrs. Campbell here. Mrs. List? Ms. Stearns? Here. Mr. Whitcomb?
Here.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Here, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Wrestler, if I could, before we move on to board business, if everyone could please just take a few minutes to recognize the tragic loss of one of our Bremen Braves, Cameron Wheatley and his family. If we could just take a moment of silence on his behalf, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Friday, we are going to celebrate senior night at Bremen. If anyone is interested, we're going to honor Cameron and his family at 5:30 prior to the start of the game at 6. And we're looking to donate proceeds of the game to the Wheatley family as well. Thank you again for recognizing his loss, and obviously our thoughts and prayers are with the Wheatley family, including his brother, who's a freshman at Bremen currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sikora. Moving on to board minute approval. Can I get approval to approve the January 18th, 2022 regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whitcomb, second by Ms. List. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. List? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Mrs. Campbell, aye. Ms. Stearns? Aye. Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Can I get a motion to approve the February 8th, 2022 committee of the whole meeting minutes?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Camworth, second by Ms. List. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Campbell, aye. Mrs. List? Aye. Mr. Johnson?
Aye.
Ms. Stearns? Yes, ma'am. Mr. Whitcomb?
Aye.
Mrs. Wrestler?
Aye. Moving on to public comments. Do we have public comments? Any sheets? Okay. Sheets?
Is there, where do we go?
A green sheet.
Pardon me?
If you wish to speak, there are green sheets available in the front, but we'll need your information, so we can follow up with you later.
Where, do I go to speak or do I have to wait to be called or just come right to the front? Okay. My name is Melissa D'Amico. My daughter is a junior at Oak Forest High School. First, I would like to say I have sent several emails over the last week. I have heard back from Dr. Sikora. I was also one of the parents that met with him last Thursday. I have heard that we need to be patient. We are waiting to hear what the appellate court judge is going to rule. The district attorney does not agree that District 228 can make up their minds and decide to go mask optional, and that we risk losing funding if we make that decision. Well, I can tell you that we have been more than patient. 2 years in masks is long enough. These masks were never meant to be worn forever. As for waiting on the next ruling, or that saying our attorney says we cannot go mask optional, pretty sure all the other school districts that have gone mask optional would disagree. Parents and children all over the state are saying enough with the masks, and school board members and their attorneys agree. So why can't our district do the same? I know our district was not named in the lawsuit, but it does state that all districts throughout the state may govern themselves accordingly. We are not asking you to take anything away. We are just asking for our right to choose back. If a parent wants their child to remain in a mask, they have that right to decide that. But I don't have the right to decide my child to go mask, tell them to go mask free. Last week, my 10-year-old son went to school without a mask. He told them he was exercising his right not to wear a mask. He was let into school with no problems. He was never made to feel like he was doing something wrong, never mistreated by a classmate or a teacher. Unfortunately, I cannot say the same for Oak Forest High School. My daughter is too afraid to take off the mask because of what has happened to other students at this school. Children were yelled at, sent to the dean's office, even sent home. Other children that are in sports had their coaches come down and yell at them. How is that acceptable? Our children will soon be approaching adulthood, and what are we teaching them? To just shut up and comply. I don't know about you, but that is not how I want to raise my daughter. My daughter has a lot of anxiety and just wants to blend in. Trying to teach her to step out of her comfort zone and teach her it is okay to stand out. Well, how can she break out of her shell and stand out when everyone is still forced to wear a mask? My daughter also relies on facial expressions to feel accepted. She has not been able to see facial expressions for 2 years. A lot of children are becoming all too comfortable with wearing masks out of fear that they will stand out or be judged or afraid of consequence. How do we tell our children to wear the masks in school, but it's okay to go to certain places unmasked? They watched the Super Bowl, and how many thousands were not wearing masks? How many in this room, including school board members, have gone to gatherings unmasked, gone to restaurants unmasked, gone to events unmasked? And yet, we tell our children they must mask up or deal with consequence. We are failing our children. The anxiety, depression, mental instability is way too high. We need to do better. I'm urging the school board to take action and vote to go mask optional immediately. Give the parents and students their right to choose that. Also, the governor's request to extend the mandate was just denied not that long ago today. So you cannot say that we need to abide by the governor's order anymore. One last thing, it was brought to our attention that District 228 has received $15 million in COVID emergency relief money. We, the parents, would like to know where that money has gone. Thank you.
Dave Paul.
Good evening. I'll make this short. I think all of us had a childhood where we didn't have to wear masks, right? This is completely different than what these kids are dealing with every day. Okay? So I get the whole money game thing, you know, the money. You got 600 schools that have said no to this already. Guess what? They're all gonna get their money. And nobody's actually getting their money. The point of this isn't about safety. Alright, it's about money. Not our children. Our children should be first before $15, $16 million. Simple as that. Okay? I was at state cheerleading last weekend. Okay? Superintendent, Jane Dempsey, Ron Town, all sitting there without masks on. And I just a sponsored event for hours. But our kids have to wear masks? Why? Hate to put you on the spot, but 2 years is enough. Thank you.
Julie Ahern.
Hello. I'm with most of these parents here against this whole mask mandate business. Pritzker assigned 100 orders. 100 of them. It's not right, guys. If you look at these kids, you all go to bars, you all go to restaurants, you walk in with your little paper on your face, you go sit down, you can take it off. The kids sit in lunchrooms. They're loud, they're talking with no mask. My son right now is in a restaurant with no mask. We've gone to tournaments out of Illinois There's no mask anywhere, on the courts, on the fields, anything they do, they're mask free. But for some reason, you guys continuously think that's gonna save you. COVID is here for the rest of your life. I work in an emergency room, I worked through the entire pandemic. While teachers and staff did their Zoom meetings and their Zoom classes, and you killed these kids, literally killed them, my son being one of them that wanted to commit suicide, is absolutely ridiculous. You do a disservice to them, and you do a disservice to us. We make their medical decisions. There are gonna be parents, there are gonna be students, there's gonna be staff that are afraid to take off the masks. Leave them on. But for the ones who aren't, don't make that decision for us. I've had 2 kids already graduate out of this school district. My 3rd one is now a senior. I have 1 more coming in. Could you at least stand up for them? Thank you.
Eleanor Grant.
I just wanted to know why you and your administration continue to harm our children's mental, emotional, and physical health, take away our choice and rights as parents, and continue to lie and not follow law. Is this what we're teaching our kids, is to lie and break laws as long as politicians say to, and as long as you keep getting your money? Why didn't our board hold an emergency meeting to discuss mask options like many others did across the state? It was requested by many parents to the principals, the superintendent, and the board with no action. Mask policy isn't even on the agenda tonight to be discussed. We, the parents, have the right to choose to mask or not to be forced. No one's gonna force people who choose to wear masks to take it off. They're our children, our choices, not yours. Our children come first. Politics and money do not come before our children, which we know they do because the superintendent, on his own admission to multiple parents, including myself in the phone conversations, that they're continuing to mask because of the money and because JB said to. That's just wrong. Masking is a personal choice. And to lie to the parents saying kids want this is sickening. And to say one reason to mask is because teachers want it and feel safer is just pathetic. First of all, the teachers' personal feelings do not come above our children. The teachers can still wear masks if they choose to, if they believe they work, which CDC has admitted they don't. Second, it's a lie anyway because many of the kids have been walking around school. We saw them out in the halls today with them on improperly or just off. During the day at school, no teachers say anything. Many teachers have even quietly voiced their disapproval of masks to the students, voiced it should be optional, and some have even admitted that they only push the kids to put them on because their boss said to. How disgusting is that? So stop blaming the kids, stop blaming the teachers. We know it's the money in politics. It's never been about health, just forced fear. The kids are only complying because your administration threatens them with their academic careers, their sports, and their grades if they do not comply. We will no longer comply or stand for our children to be threatened to comply. Now do the right thing and make this optional and stop threatening our kids. By the way, when we all walked in here today, your own administration was sitting in that front office, no masks on, right next to each other, come to answer the door to let us in and put their masks on. You cannot tell me it's just for show.
Courtney Yeager.
Let me preface by saying, please do not misinterpret my empathy for the experience of the children as indifference to what educators and admins have been through. I know it has been hard. I've seen the amount of work you have put in. You have constantly had to adapt and change to everything that's been thrown at you. I know there are millions of hours of things that have been done that we'll never know, and I am grateful. But today, I want to speak on behalf of my kids. The past 2 years have been overwhelming to the point of complete exhaustion for everyone. Every human being is beyond tired. The constant unknowns, the lack of control, the pivoting, the division, the fear, the alienation, the necessary rules and the arbitrary ones. I'm an adult and I'm so weary. Guess who's feeling it without the ability to articulate it? Guess who is suffering in ways we have not even begun to scratch the surface on. Guess who has to go along with whatever we throw at them, who has to adapt to change after change after change, who has no say ever in anything? Our children. We sent them home 704 days ago and told them it's just 15 days to slow the spread, we can do this, we're in this together. Then we said, it's just the end of the school year, they're already checked out, they'll be safer at home. Then we said, it's just sports, it's just parks, it's just clubs, it's just a dance, it's just temporary, they'll be fine. It's just band, it's just a play, it's just a small loss of services, it's just a college visit. It's just a little bit longer, we need to hold on. It's just driver's ed, it's just prom, it's just graduation, it's just a million little things that added up to their everything, but it's for the greater good, they'll understand. And they did understand because we promised them their sacrifices would mean something. Then fall came and we said there's just no treatment, no vaccine, our schools are not equipped, remote learning is the only way to keep everyone safe, so they went to school online. They traded classrooms for a camera in their bedroom all day long. They traded please don't call on me for a camera in their face, making them more self-conscious than ever. They traded their teachers' smiles for teachers in empty classrooms with masks on. They traded books for apps and pencils and papers for iPads. They traded group projects for group chats and hall passes for Paul's screens. And after a few months, some kids returned to the building on the days they were allowed and traded everything that felt innate socially for forced disconnection and distancing. But they were allowed back in school and that was all that mattered, right? We did the best we could with what we knew at the time. There was a collective sigh when that year was over. They made it. They spent their entire summer living normally. They got a taste of life before the pandemic. They relaxed, traveled, got to see people's faces when they spoke to them. Stopped feeling nervous in crowds, went back to sports and clubs, and all of the things outside their families that made them feel confident and whole and seen. Then it was time to go back to school with masks, and it made no sense. There was never a metric to decide when they were or weren't needed, never a goalpost to meet to remove them, just accept them regardless of what the data says, because it keeps us in person and we all want to stay in person. But at what point do we stop? At what point do we reevaluate? And when do we do a risk-benefit analysis for the kids? When do we consider the mental health of children, the double depression and anxiety in youth, the 300% increase in speech delays, the increased developmental delays, the lower IQ, the 120% increase in eating disorder hospitalizations, the 22% increase in ER visits for suspected suicide attempts in children 12 to 17, and the staggering 51% increase in attempts in young girls alone. The dramatic increase of unimaginable stress these young people face, the learning loss, the lack of empathy and peer problems and learning difficulties that occur because kids can't read social cues or emotions behind a face covering. The fact that masks are becoming like pacifiers or a comfort item and children and teens are starting to enjoy not being seen. The shame they feel because they've been conditioned to think of their schools as hubs for infection and themselves as vectors for disease. We really need to start hearing what they're not saying. We're failing them. And we're failing them because we don't even know how to process any of this ourselves. We're failing them because we have allowed fear to lead for too long. We're failing them because we are too afraid to admit just how much we have overestimated their ability to roll with these impossible punches. I am sick to death of hearing how resilient our kids are. I'm sick of hearing they don't mind. I'm sick of hearing it's just a mask. I'm sick of trying to decorate garbage because accepting the reality of what we're actually doing to them is too much to bear. We need to bear it. We need to dig it up and look it in the face and admit we were wrong. No matter how right we thought we were at the time, we were wrong and we need to own it. We need to fix it. The children are not okay and we need to get them normal right now. We need to acknowledge what they have endured and pour so much into them that they can no longer be suffocated by the apathy, disconnect, and confusion that has hung heavy in the air the past 2 years. We need to give them normal because what comes next is worse than everything behind us if we don't. We need to acknowledge how truly heavy this has been for them and tell them they no longer need to carry it. They were never the ones at risk. This was never theirs to carry.
I don't mean to interrupt you, you have 30 seconds left.
And we made them carry it. We are still making them carry it. We are still asking them to act as shields for adults that can be vaccinated if they choose, adults that can wear an N95 if they choose, parents can send their kids to school in N95 and get them vaccinated if they choose. We need to get back to individual responsibility. The CDC says cloth masks are better than nothing, but not very effective. We know deep down that the cloth that is thrown in pockets, on gym floors, on bathroom sinks, and God knows where else before covering their mouth isn't keeping them healthy. We know that they are never properly worn or clean. We know touching the outside of them repeatedly all day and then touching everything else is the opposite is how you prevent transmission.
Thank you, Ms. Yeager. Thank you, I appreciate it.
it's very hard to explain to a sophomore with special needs. He's got ADHD and autism. Every day comes home, when's the pandemic gonna end? When's the pandemic gonna end? I have no answer. We're looking at a fact that we haven't had a pandemic 100 years ago. So this is all new to everyone. But the positivity rate is lower now than it was back in August of this year. You had two things where in August you said, kids don't have to wear masks, and everybody was in the same place we are right today, asking, you gotta wear a mask, don't wear a mask, wear a mask. The governor said, okay, now everybody's gotta wear a mask. The other thing, we got proven vaccines that work, we've got pills that are coming out, we have all this. Our children are wearing masks still. I chose to get my kids vaccinated. We followed the rules, we did what we were supposed to do, and yet we still have to wear a mask. Why? Because you're trying to protect somebody else from catching the virus. But I don't see it. I think what I'm saying, trying to make the point is that it's lower, we should make politics involved in this. Follow the science, the positivity rate is going down. The Omicron variant has wiped away Delta. And kids are not, it's not as severe as it was. And they're talking about lowering the mask mandate on the 28th. So I say we should do it now, today. And let our kids look to the teacher. The teacher can look at a student and say, do you understand the question? And the kid's gonna look at her. He's got a mask on, and he can't, or she can't express themselves to the teacher. The teacher knows you make that contact with the child. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Diana Loche.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I want to point out first, one of the most ridiculous things that you, ladies and gentlemen, are doing right now. CDC has stated that masks, cloth masks, do not work, and you should not be using them. 9 out of 12 of you are using it, including the superintendent. Shame on you. You're trying to say that you care for the children and the safety of everybody else, yet you are the biggest hypocrite of all. And I'll continue with my speech. Mr. Sikora, let me remind you our conversation from the last meeting last week.
By the way, it's Dr. Sikora.
Dr. Sikora. I'm still a gentleman after all, right? So I don't think a gentleman or a doctor is the same thing. Let me remind you what we discussed last week. When we asked you, how is it that some schools can do it with no mask, yet you impose on these restrictions and continue with these restrictions, masks? And I quote, there are many reasons, and one of those is funding. And that puzzled me, funding. So not safety, not security for the students and the teachers, but funding. That was your number one reason why you couldn't let masks go. So then we started digging, funding, of course. $15 million in federal emergency funding aids that are pending based on executive orders and following the COVID mitigations, whether they have been received or are waiting to be received. $15+ million. Your second reason was athletics. You didn't bother explaining onto those, and I'm sure most of the parents that have children in athletics, they know exactly what you mean by that. And third, again, let me remind you, it was not safety and security of students. It was, and I quote, designation for me to graduate you. So if you are a senior and I have no authority to give you a diploma, I think parents will have an issue with that. Again, no safety or security. So let me ask you this, sir. Have you taken an oath of office?
No.
You, sir, are a fraud at this point. We have the right to call our sheriff that represents us and personally remove you from office. That's under the law, and please search it up. So right now, you are on notice, sir, and so is the rest of your department. Thank you.
I want to thank
I'll make a
coming
phone call
see.
to the Sharps and find
Thank you,
them.
thank you. I wanna take a moment and just thank the parents that came out today to speak. I do appreciate your comments. But I have prepared a statement for you. On February 4th, a temporary restraining order was issued against some of the COVID mandates in Illinois schools. It should be noted that District 228 was not party to this order. On February 5th, during the South Cook Division School Board meeting, it was advised that if your district was not called out in the TRO, the recommended guidance was to consult with your district attorney. Meetings were scheduled immediately on Monday, February 7th. It is imperative that District 228 administration get the time to complete their due diligence prior to making a decision and avoid having to reverse a decision based on any appeals. Unfortunately, during this time, we have been attacked with heated and disrespectful emails with little to no understanding of the possible ramifications to our students, staff, family, and communities. To be clear, no one wants more than to return to normal than the people at this table. But we must take into consideration all those impacted by our decisions and not just those tired of wearing a mask. I cannot speak to decisions or how decisions are made at our surrounding districts, but our decisions will be based on what is best for our student body, staff, their families, and our communities. We will take your concerns into consideration along with the science and guidance from our attorney, but we will not be bullied into making our decision. And if you want more information about how we plan or have used spent any of the COVID money, you are welcome to watch any of our board meetings for the past 2 years. Thank you very much. I'd like to close public comments and move on to reports. Our superintendent report, Dr. Sikora.
Thank you, Mrs. Ressler. Just one item to put on the calendar if you're interested. It's a month out, but wanted to just give you some advance warning. The 48th Annual Keith Anderson Fine Arts Festival will take place on Saturday, March 19th at Tinley Park High School in the main gym. This event, which is free and open to the public, begins at 9 a.m. with exhibits of outstanding artwork created by art students from all 4 of our high schools, as well as our grade schools, college booths, musical performances, continuing through 2:30 p.m. I hope you and your family and friends will be able to attend this very special event that showcases our students' artistic accomplishments and musical talents. Thank you.
Any principal reports?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Jane Benson, Oak Forest High School. I just wanted to report to the school board that our chess team qualified the entire team for state, and they competed in state this past weekend. Our girls bowling team is conference champs, and the entire team qualified as sectional qualifiers. Boys bowling were also conference champs, and Jake Olkowitz placed 17th at state. Boys wrestling competed in regionals, and they came out champs of regionals. They qualified 7 of our students for state. With girls wrestling, our inaugural season, 4 state qualifiers with 1 regional champion. Those state competitions will be coming up shortly. We completed the competitive dance with our team winning conference, and they were state qualifiers. Cheer team were sectional champions. They were state qualifiers, and they made it to the final day for cheer and took their place on the podium, received their medals for their outstanding second place and state finish. So wonderful, wonderful season for our cheer team once again. We certainly have upcoming regional boys and girls basketball events, swim and dive events. I just want to mention one additional individual accomplishment. Our junior Janae Kent scored over 1,000 points so far in her career at Oak Forest High School, and she had a game high of 43 points in a recent match. So just want to thank the board for their support of our activities in athletics, and thank you.
Good evening. Randy Cowenhoven, Tinley Park High School. I'm here for Dr. Nolan this evening. To make a positive impact for our staff this month, we have deemed February as Fun February. So we have a month filled with opportunities to elevate and energize our staff. Some of the activities include a yogurt parfait bar, smoothie stations, staff chair massages provided by an Oak Forest grad, Kristen Safansky. After an after-school social gathering, administrators are subbing in some study halls this month to give our teachers a little bit of a break from that. And our staff has enjoyed these events, and they're looking forward to the events to come. Also, congratulations to our Titans for winning the District Dash, which was sponsored by the Curtin family. We will be using our winnings to provide a lunch tomorrow during our sick day. And keep your eyes open for our Back to the 80s musical, set to take the stage on April 29th, 30th, and May 1st. Dr. Nolan wanted to be here to make that announcement herself because she tends to dress in 80s style almost every day with her hair. And I told her I was going to use that. So, Honors Night also is scheduled a little bit further out, May 5th, and you are all cordially invited to attend that event. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Ron Towner from Hillcrest High School. Been in the midst of celebrating Black History Month. We just finished up our door decorating contest, named the winner. It's actually the next hallway over if you wanted to see the winning door. Many different organizations and classrooms decorated doors in the spirit of Black History Month. We've been doing Black History trivia every Monday morning. On Fridays, we have Soul Food Fridays in the cafeteria with DJ playing music. Spirit Week is going on this week. Today was African Colors Day by class, and then tomorrow's Wakanda Day. Talent show on the 24th from 5 to 7. You're all invited. And then we also have our Black History Month Assembly on the same day at 2:15. Last week for our faculty meeting, we hosted, we wanted to encourage positivity throughout the building. So each of our 14 administrators decided to recognize a staff member or a group of staff members for things that they've done going above and beyond. So we had a little presentation for each of those members, and then afterwards we had our college signing take place in the gym and invited staff to join in on the positivity for our student athlete accomplishments. We recently had 9 FCCLA students qualify for state. The students had to score 90% or higher on their projects in order to make it to the state level. Malik Lindsay, one of our students, scored a perfect score, 100%, and then the others were at least, they were most outstanding awards where they scored at least that 90% benchmark or better. And then finally, this past weekend, we had wrestling sectionals. We had boys wrestling and girls wrestling sectionals. It's the inaugural year of girls wrestling. 4 of our Hillcrest athletes qualified for state for the boys, and then we have our first ever state qualifier, a female, Shayana Kassim, who took 2nd place in the sections. Thank you.
Good evening, Jessica Rosinski from Bremen High School. As many of you are aware, Bremen High School experienced the tragic loss of one of our beloved student athletes last week, senior basketball player Cameron Wheatley. I would be remiss to speak of anything else tonight, as his loss is at the forefront of the hearts and minds of our students, staff, and the community. Cameron was a dedicated student athlete who left an impact on all of those that we had the pleasure of knowing him. He was a great friend and a loyal teammate. Friday night, we'll honor our senior boys basketball players and celebrate Cam's life before our final home game of the season. As we grieve the loss of Cameron, his teammates have reminded us that Cameron would want us to enjoy life and the little moments that we have with our beloved ones each and every day. We would also like to thank our sister schools for the overwhelming support that they've provided during this difficult time. Please keep the Wheatley family in your thoughts and prayers as we all work through this difficult time together. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all principals. Moving on to our FOIA request.
Thank you, Mrs. Ressler. Since the last regular board meeting, we received the following Freedom of Information Act requests. Juliana Braun, SEIU Local 1, requested copies of current contracts with all entities providing food services, janitorial, maintenance, and/or cleaning services, and security and/or school safety services. This request has been completed. Zoe Yalcine, Smart Procure, requested all purchasing records from 10/8/21 to current to include purchase order number, purchase date, line item details, including quantity and price, vendor ID number, name, address, and contact information. This request has been completed.
Thank you very much. Any board member reports?
Yes. I'm the one that actually supports optional. As I told the superintendent maybe about a week ago when it came out. I understand that Dr. Fauci, when he first said it, that masks don't work. are hell bent on these rules that they eliminated to control us board members and not express real concerns about what things are going on in this district. You know, and I'm gonna just say this one. Larry Seymour is a math teacher.
Good for him.
What?
No, I'm saying good for you that you're speaking up in front of all these other people who are cowards. Cowards.
We pay our math teachers, some of them, $1,000 a day. And Larry Seymour is one of those guys who now has forced the district to go to arbitration. Okay? Larry Seymour is a math teacher that makes $155,370
And Mark,
for a
we
salary.
can't discuss this for closed session. Thank you.
And then
Any other
we
board member
have
reports?
his insurance.
Mark, this is closed session personnel information.
Closed session.
Salary.
Why can't you
Talk
talk?
to the public.
Yeah, just go.
Let them speak.
Please comments down, or else I will end the meeting.
$175.
Mark.
$701 is what
All
we
right,
paid.
we're moving on to new
this
business.
month.
Ms. Morrison, can we move on to item 5.1? Thank you.
Wow. 5.1 is the bill, the bill.
Wow, is that the intimidation that you're gonna use
That's
when he
how
goes to
it's how
speak?
to run a meeting, and if you speak out again, we will stop the meeting. Thank you. Please move on. 5.1.
So you wanna bully us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
but what
said about
the
bullying you.
You're talking
You're bullying
about
us.
bullying the three
Standing up
dudes.
for the
This
kids.
is
We're
what
the
you're
ones
doing to
that
our
pay.
children too.
We pay all your salaries.
This is what you
Just
do to our
remember that.
kids.
The beginning of this meeting started with a pledge. Let the man speak. Let him use his freedom of speech.
He's on the board, let
Yeah.
him talk.
No,
Ms. Stearns?
Sounds like you're a bully.
Mrs. Ressler?
Thank you very much.
You have failed these children.
Yeah, you failed all of us.
Your job is
You're not
to
gonna- you're not
teach
gonna
them how to
talk
think,
now?
not what to think.
Because he has a different opinion than you? Okay.
Continue now that you canceled her meeting.
There you go.
Can you please speak, sir? We'd all like to hear what you have to say.
This is a school board of District
The meeting's
228
been
Walking
adjourned,
House.
so.
He still has a
He
freedom
can
of
talk to
speech.